Well, I just started getting into season 13. I really did not care for the first 3 episodes with that stupid twist. And the first competitive episode, I didn't really find that interesting either. I thought the challenge was a bit dumb. But the last episode, the Bull challenge, was phenomenal and kind of reawakened my interest in actually talking about season 13. So season 13 video might be up. There will definitely be a Drag Race UK video because I'm loving that season. But for now I was really contemplating, okay, I really want to upload something but I don't really know what. I already did a video where I did season 9 with the season 10 challenges and how maybe this season would have played out differently. And I was going to do the same with season 10 but with season 11 challenges. But then I got bored by that because it reminded me how much I disliked both season 10 and 11. Okay, that's a strong word. I obviously still enjoyed it. It's still definitely something I had a lot of fun watching. But I guess I was kind of reminded about how sort of the Queen's potential maybe wasn't taken advantage of the most, I guess to put it nicely. But then another idea kind of came to mind, namely what would be if season 10 actually had the All-Stars format. And with that I obviously mean the good All-Stars format, that of season 2 to season 4. Not the stupid All-Stars 5 format, nor the Synergy format, the really good format. The interest of this came from sort of looking at how season 10 was especially volatile. A lot of queens disliked one another. You had Aquaria, Cracker disliking one another, the Vixen versus, amongst others, Eureka, obviously the big fight. You had Aquaria and the Vixen, you had Asia and Cracker, so a lot of animosity. And that is obviously what a great All-Star season ultimately would need. A lot of queens that don't like each other and don't maybe necessarily care for the politics that come with Drag Race. So for this particular video, we will be looking into season 10 with the original challenges and how an All-Stars format might change the whole game. Spoiler alert, it will be different. For preference, or like as a disclaimer, I will not use my own judgment. The bottom, the queen up for, or like on the chopping block, will be those that will ultimately lip syncing, if possible at least. And the top 2 will also be chosen by the judging. With a lot of these scenarios, I ended up having to make my own judgments because of how the season played out. Let's see if you guys agree with my ideas there. Let's go through the cast at first. Aquaria, Vanjie, Eureka, Calorie, Cameron, Yuha, Monique, Asia, Dusty, Cracker, Mayhem, Monet, Blair and the Vixen. Episode 1 was 10s across the board. Here obviously our top 2 of the week are Mayhem, Miller and Miss Cracker. Mayhem won this episode and Cracker was a close runner-up. With the lip sync song being a Christina Aguilera song and knowing that Cracker doesn't necessarily do sexy well, I would assume the lip sync winner would be Mayhem Miller. The bottom 2 being then Calorie and Vanjie. Now I was really thinking about this. When looking back at the episode, you can't necessarily say that one got harsher critiques than the others. Both got sort of a mixed bag. Well, as Vanjie was criticized for the lack of shape, Calorie was criticized by how lackluster the look was, especially when compared to the predecessors as far as like dollar looks go. So I don't think you can make a judgment based on that. Now, but by like All-Stars 5, we do know that Mayhem and Alexis Mateo may have had a relationship prior to even being on Drag Race. So that would obviously make Vanjie a lot more sympathetic to Mayhem than Calorie would. And based on sort of how the queens interacted, it kind of seemed to me that Calorie might rub off a bit worse than Vanjie did. So a lot of this would be based on sympathy, or not sympathy, but like I guess charisma and who vibes well with who. And based on that, I'm assuming Calorie Kardashian actually gets the chop and Vanjie gets to stay. Episode 2, the PharmaRusical. A quite pivotal episode now. Why am I saying that? Well, let's look at this look by Blair St. Clair. You might be wondering why are we looking at this? Well, I think that obviously the vixen would be the top two, but who would be the other person? It would obviously have to be somebody from that team. I think Blair would make a good second top two queen. A, because she did really well in the PharmaRusical itself. She was this fairy character. And then you have this gorgeous beaded look. So I think it's clear to say that Blair and the vixen will be the top two. And with the lip sync song being Best of My Love by The Emotions, I think it's also pretty clear to say that the vixen will be winning this episode. We obviously have seen a lip sync between these two, so the bottom two I'm assuming would be Vanjie and Eureka. Eureka, obviously, she was originally in the bottom two. Calorie isn't here anymore. I see Vanjie in the bottom two. Why? Because when we look at how poorly, and I mean poorly, she did at the PharmaRusical and at the Magic Show, I think those two are really good indicators, and at her top 4 performance that she really wouldn't do that well. The only other person really clearly in the bottom was Monique Hart, and I'm not assuming her to be worse than Vanjie. So it would be between these two. And now things become really interesting. We already know that the vixen didn't like Eureka to begin with. She already had a preconceived notion of who Eureka was to her from the get-go. Not saying I agree or disagree necessarily, I don't care, but based on that though, I do assume that Eureka would get the chop. Yes, finalist Eureka I think would get the chop because she doesn't get to save herself in a lip sync against Calorie or Vanjie for that matter. And the vixen ultimately has the deciding power. And I think if she gets a chance of eliminating Eureka, she will not hesitate. And I would kind of be living for that. So in a dramatic turn of events, Eureka is going home, episode 2. Episode 3, Tap That App. In Tap That App, obviously the top 2 of the week would be, for one hand, Asia O'Hara, and then I would assume Blair St. Clair. The only other clear top, I think, in that episode was Monique Hart. I might be wrong. Oh no, Eureka, I think. So it would be Asia and Blair, and I don't think Vanjie would be such a standout that she would be in the top. So I think it would be Asia and Blair St. Clair in the top 2. The lip sync song being Celebrity Skin by Hole could go to Blair, but I find Asia to be a bit more of an intriguing lip syncer than Blair is. The bottom 2 would be Mayhem and Yuha. And either way, Blair or Asia, I think both of them would judge quite fairly. And yes, you could say, well, we know that Asia didn't like Mayhem. Well, I think it's harsh to say that that already happened in episode 3. I think this is a bit too early on. Mayhem already has a win under her belt, Yuha doesn't. So I think Yuha Hamasaki, like originally, goes home in episode 3. Episode 4 is The Last Ball on Earth. This becomes a quite interesting episode. On the one hand, because of our top 2, Aquaria and Cracker. The whole plot of Aquaria vs. Cracker, which didn't last that long, could come to a tipping point here with the dramatic Nicki Minaj Pound the Alarm lip sync between the two of them. I mean, that would be iconic. That would be so good. But love Cracker, but no chance. And I think, of course, then the bottom 2 would be Monet and Dusty. With Aquaria winning the lip sync, the question is who will she send home? We know that she has some sort of rapport with both of these bottom queens because both of them are from New York City. But unlike Cracker, she's like a sister of any of them. If Cracker would have won that lip sync, I think clearly Monet would have stayed because they are drag sisters. And also because Dusty and Monet, as of now, have been only safe. So Aquaria would literally just base it off the looks. And if we compare the two looks of the two queens from the whole ball, I think it's not too controversial to say that Dusty's was better. I mean, look at Monet's Alaskan look. What is that? No. Inexcusable. I'm sorry, love Monet Exchange so much. But by All Stars format, she can't save herself by her lip sync. She absolutely won that lip sync against Dusty, but in this scenario, there is no way she can actually save herself because she's not lip syncing. Monet Exchange is out. The Bossy Rossy show hated that, by the way, hated that challenge. Now who will be the top 2 here? I would assume that Cracker and Monique would be. Cracker obviously Eureka won that episode originally, and Cracker was a close second again, so this would be her win. This is a general benefit of the All-Stars format, that a queen that oftentimes ends up being the runner-up, like Cracker did, would get wins. And Monique Hart, she was in the top this episode, and because she doesn't have to fight Eureka, and because I don't assume that either Dusty or Vanjie would be so stellar that they would be better than Monique, I'm assuming these two would be definitely on the top two. As far as the bottom two, I'm gonna go ahead and say that it's gonna be, on the one hand, of course, Mayhem Miller, who originally lip-synced, and Vanjie. Vanjie, because we have seen how she does on these improv challenges, and yeah, that's all I have to say for that, I guess. Look at her Snatch game if you need reminding. And like on process of elimination, I don't find anybody else to be worse. Dusty is actually pretty funny off the cuff. So yeah. And at this point, I think Cracker would win that lip sync. The song is "Man, I Feel Like a Woman" by Trump voter Shania Twain. It seems more like Cracker, but could be Monique. But either one of them, I don't think would be unfair in who they decide to send home. Obviously Vanjie, this being her third time in the bottom. Good question now would be if she would still do the Vanjie thing. Probably not. At this time, she probably would have thought of not better, but like of a more substantial exit line. But yeah, Vanjie goes home on episode 5 here. Mayhem is safe. We enter episode 6, Drag-Con Panel Extravaganza. Here I think it is important to look at who would be in whose team. I don't look at that with the other challenges, but I think with this one it's quite important. We have the benefit of two teams being completely here, so we have Aquaria, Asia and Monique, and Cracker, Blair and the Vixen. So these two teams we already have, but the third team being Dusty, Mayhem and Cameron. Obviously I can't guarantee that these teams would then actually form this same way, but to make my life a bit easier, I'm assuming, I mean it makes sense with the second team, at least with Blair, Cracker and Vixen having had a friendship. The other two teams could maybe be wobbled around a bit. Well, with this, I would assume that the first team, Aquaria, Asia and Monique, would get the top, because I generally thought that panel was quite good. The whole, they're doing too much at the same time, a valid criticism, but I don't think that would be that important then in the editing. And when looking at the looks from the Hats Incredible challenge, I think it would be Aquaria and Asia on the top, with Monique being safe. Now who would be the bottom team? Originally, obviously that was Cracker, Blair and the Vixen. I think in this scenario though, because of the fact that we don't have Monet Exchange and Eureka saving Cameron's ass, and Mayhem and Dusty have to be there and go with Cameron, that would be such a boring group. So I'm assuming these three would be the bottom three. And I don't know who would win that lip sync song, as I'm coming up with Diana Ross. Could be Asia, but Aquaria is just like a stellar lip sync performer. But either way, I think Dusty would be going home, obviously. On the one hand, because Mayhem, yes, she was in the bottom now for the second time, but she already has a win, and Cameron Michaels has been safe so far, and Dusty has just been in the bottom so far. So Dusty goes home here by, I don't know who, wouldn't necessarily matter. Snatch game. Snatch game, well, we have a quite interesting challenge, because this was a bad Snatch game. And now we have two people from whom we don't know how they would perform. I think the top two of the week would be Aquaria and Blair St. Clair. Aquaria obviously because she won that challenge originally, and Blair because she was going to be doing Rachel Barry, and I think that would be good. Blair does comedy well she did okay on All Stars 5, but I think she would do good enough here, at least by process of elimination, because this was a bad Snatch game. Asia, Cracker, Monique and the Vixen weren't good. Cameron was okay enough, I didn't think she was that strong. And Mayhem, looking at how she does at improv challenges, I'm not assuming would do well. Based on that, I'm assuming that one of either Asia, Mayhem, the Vixen or Monique Hart would be in the bottom. Cracker was safe. But when looking at the fact that Mayhem Miller was going to be rocking this mermaid look, I'm assuming that would be Monique and the Vixen in the bottom two, with Asia and Mayhem being saved by their mermaid looks. With Aquaria obviously winning the lip sync, I mean the song was cut to the feeling by Carly Rae Jepsen and her opponent would be Blair Sinclair, I mean it's no question. The question would be who would she eliminate? Both Monique Hart and the Vixen at this point would have gotten one win, and both of them would have been in the bottom for the first time. So Aquaria would have to base it on either the performance. I don't think that's a valid indicator because both of them were horrendous and neither one of their runways was particularly strong. And if that's not an indicator and nothing else is, then well, sympathy, or like who she actually likes. And she did not like the Vixen. So I think this is where the relationships play into importance again. With that, I think the Vixen would be going home and Monique Hart would be saved. As usually with All Stars, there is always a comeback episode, and because Drag Race obviously wants to maximize their means of profit, they would have a girl groups challenge, I at least assume to be the most likely challenge, so they can have 2 songs on Spotify that people will listen to. The first group obviously being the winning group, or the competing queens, and the second group being the losing queens. No one will be going home this episode to compensate for the double Shantae of season 10. Well, when looking at the lineups, I think it's obvious that the staying queens are the winning queens. We have Aquaria, Asia, Cracker, Cameron, Monique. That's already good enough. Mayhem and Blair could bandwagon off of that. And now who would be in the top 2? Based on what we've seen, I would assume Asia and Cracker. I thought Asia's verse on season 10 was really strong. Not that catchy, but very nicely written. And Cracker's verse on season 5 of All Stars was immensely strong. I mean, she is a writer, so that's obvious. Now, I don't know who would win this lip sync. I'm assuming Cracker. I don't know why, I'm just assuming that probably they would have a really dancey song. And in general, I'm assuming Cracker to be a better lip syncer than Asia O'Hara. I'm sure Asia is great, but I'm just assuming that, but I don't think that matters necessarily that much. With Cracker now having won and being able to decide who gets to return, I think it's clear that it would be either Monet Exchange or the Vixen. And I mean, it's either Monet because she obviously is her drag sister, or the Vixen because she was the last one eliminated. But when looking at the fact that the Cracker and Miss Vixen already had a relationship, they were really good friends, I think the Vixen gets to stay because she wins on both accounts. She deserves it the most and she actually has a good relationship with Cracker. Sorry Monet, but you don't get to return, but the Vixen does, for share the unauthorized Rusical. With the unauthorized Rusical, obviously now we have to consider how 2 queens do that we don't know how they would, or like actually 3 queens, how they would perform, and we don't know how they would originally perform. I mean, we have Monique, we have Mayhem and Blair. I think the top 2 of the week would be Cameron and Monique Hart. Cameron obviously won that week's challenge, and Monique Hart would win because that's exactly what she does. She's a live performer, she's a live singer. Monique Hart has an impeccable voice. She's a dancer, she does these divas really well, so obviously. Also when looking at the fact how poorly Aquaria, Asia, Cracker and the Vixen did. I don't think Cracker did that badly, I think Cracker did good enough, but the other 3 definitely did badly. Now who would be the bottom? Or at least let's first talk about the lip sync, which would be an iconic lip sync, Groove is in the Heart. I mean, Cameron versus Monique, Groove is in the Heart, double Shantae. I mean, they always have that, a double win for All Stars, so this would be it. Both of them get 5,000, lovely dovey, they would have chosen the same lip sync. Now we need to look at Mayhem's glitter look. This is important because that informs why I'm putting her in the bottom with Asia. I think the Vixen would have been saved here because of her glitter runway. I think Aquaria would be safe because of her look. Cracker obviously was just generally safe, and Blair is a theatre queen, so she would do well enough, I think. Now with Asia and Mayhem, well, Asia did horribly in the performance. She literally forgot the lyrics, so I think that's self-understood. And with Mayhem, I'm going to say that she would be in the bottom because of her All Stars 5 performance, because in general how she did in these kinds of performances. I'm assuming she would be in the bottom. And then looking at her glitter runway, which was very underwhelming. I was quite surprised when I saw that. And at this stage, obviously, you can't possibly eliminate Asia when you want to be fair. And I think Cameron and Monique would be fair and eliminate Mayhem Miller. We enter episode 10. Another horrible challenge, Breastworld. Originally a double save between Cameron and Eureka, who has long gone. With Breastworld, I think the top two of the week would be Aquaria and Asia. Asia originally won that episode, and Aquaria did really good there as well. So I think these two definitely would be the top two. I originally also thought that Aquaria should have won that episode, but whatever. These two would definitely lip sync to New Attitude by Patti LaBelle. Again, I'm assuming Aquaria to win. I mean, if you disagree with me, just look at Aquaria's performance. It's like she's not just somebody who has a lot of tricks. She's a genuinely masterful performer. I may not give Asia enough credit, but I just don't see it for her. But disagree with me if you want to. Maybe I am being biased. But yeah, I think Aquaria would win. But I don't think necessarily that matters that much, because obviously both of them won on paper, and both of them would be fair in their judgment, and neither one of them had great animosities. The bottom two, I think, would be the Vixen and Cameron. Cameron obviously because she was in the bottom, and the Vixen because when looking at sort of her performance and Tap That Up, the Bossy Rossy show, and generally what her standing in the group was, I wouldn't assume her to do that well. Thought Cracker did well enough. Her look definitely saved her. Blair does these challenges well enough, and Monique would have slayed it. She might have actually gotten in the top here, but for all intents and purposes, it would be Cameron versus the Vixen. And also obviously due to the fact that the Vixen wouldn't be allowed to stay much longer due to the fact that she would be the returning queen. And this is then where Aquaria sends her home again. Episode 11, Social Media Kings into Queens. We have almost the complete gang together, but we don't have Eureka and Monet obviously, but Monique and Blair, so lovely. I think the top two here would be Cracker, of course, and then Asia. I think that's clear. Aquaria surprisingly did poorly here. Asia did really well with her jacket, and Cracker won that week's episode with Miss Cookie. I would think that Aquaria would be safe from the bottom two, and I would assume that Cracker would win the lip sync with the lip sync song. What was it again? Good as Hell by Lizzo. Again, maybe I'm being biased, but I don't think Asia would be able to beat these girls, but I might be unfair again. The bottom two, I think, would be Cameron and Monique Hard. Cameron because of her looks, and Monique because she genuinely really struggled with her runways. Now this is an interesting question. Now Cracker can decide either one of these two people to send home. Cameron has got one win, and Monique has had one win in the past, and both have been in the bottom in the past. I think Cracker on All Stars 5 really proved herself to be really sort of meticulous with track record, unless it came to eliminating Blair Sinclair, but I think she would be fair enough in this elimination. And considering how she didn't have a strong relationship with either one, I think that would be the only determining factor. And with that, Cameron Michaels goes home because she was in the bottom one time more than Monique Hart was. And based on what I remember, I think Cracker had a stronger relationship with Monique than she did with Cameron Michaels. Of course, again, really dramatic, considering that Cameron Michaels originally was a finalist, but that was only due to the fact, not only, but mostly due to the fact that she is a lip sync assassin. But obviously in this format, that doesn't come into play, meaning that she does not get to save herself. But she does pretty well going into the top 6. Episode 12, the Evil Twins Challenge. I think a great challenge. The top two here, I think, would be Aquaria and Asia. The lip sync song being Nasty Girl by Vanity 6, I think is existent, and I think due to the fact that we are here at the top 5, there would be nobody safe, so all other queens are in the bottom. Monique, Blair and Cracker. Cracker to do badly, and I'm not assuming Blair and Monique to turn out any fierce gourmand. Blair might, but Monique I don't assume. With Asia and Aquaria in the top 2, I'm assuming Aquaria to win and obviously Monique to go home. She had a a poor track record now at this point, but in this iteration at least, she makes it pretty far, and I think in general Monique was a really strong contender if it weren't for the wig fall, which was a justified reason to eliminate her. But I think I just want to say that if that wouldn't have happened, I think we would have seen a lot more of Monique Hart, because I think she's so resourceful, so creative, true force. Now, we enter our finale, our top 4 performance, with a different top 4. We have Aquaria and Asia, then we have Miss Cracker, who almost made it on her season, but in this season she does make it, and Blair Sinclair, who saves herself by having had some wins, mostly falling in the safe bracket and not having to lip sync, obviously. Now let's look at the track records. We have Aquaria, Asia and Cracker with 5 wins, and Asia and Cracker with 1 bottom. Blair comes in with 3 wins and 1 bottom, obviously immediately disqualifying her from being able to win. Now I think obviously the 3 queens here on the left sort of average out quite equally. I don't think the one time in the bottom for these 2 queens here with the pink background makes that much of a difference. I still assume Aquaria to win, due to the fact that Aquaria got a really great storyline, has proven herself to be a well-rounded queen, winning both acting challenges and design challenges. She won both the Ball and Snatch game. I think with that said, I think Aquaria would win. Do you guys disagree? If so, leave that in the comment section below, or if in general you disagree with any of my judgments of how I think this season would have turned out. It's already hypothetical, and none of this truly matters. It was just really fun to do. I think it really shows that for a really good All-Star season, you have to have conflict from the get-go. So it's just become juicy, you know? We just need that. Anyways, so have a great time, stay safe, and I'll talk to you soon. Bye bye.